And beautiful alien queen was paralyzed to see a human cleaner look similar to her late husband, but what she discovered shocked her. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, where stars shimmered like scattered diamonds against an endless velvet canvas, there existed a realm unlike any other. The planet Xylora floated serenely in its corner of the galaxy, wrapped in swirling mists of opalescent hues that danced across its surface like living auroras. It was a world both breathtaking and enigmatic, home to beings whose beauty transcended human comprehension. Among them stood their sovereign, a queen whose presence commanded reverence not just from her people but from all who dared gaze upon her. Her name was whispered with awe even among distant civilizations. Queen Leora. She was not merely regal, she embodied grace itself, her form sculpted by nature's most delicate hand. Her skin glowed faintly, as though imbued with starlight, shifting colors subtly depending on her emotions. Soft blues for calm, radiant golds for joy, deep purples when sorrow touched her heart. Her eyes were twin galaxies, swirling with infinite depth, capable of piercing through time and space itself. And yet, despite her ethereal splendor, there was something profoundly lonely about her. Leora had ruled Xylora for centuries, her wisdom guiding her people through trials unimaginable to lesser species. Yet, behind her serene facade lay a void no power or prestige could fill. Years ago, she had lost her beloved consort, Kalian, in a tragic accident during one of their explorations into uncharted territories of the universe. His death left her shattered, unable to fully embrace life again. Though outwardly composed, inwardly she remained tethered to memories of him, the way his laughter echoed through their crystalline palace, how his touch warmed her cool skin, the way he looked at her as if she were the only being in existence worth seeing. Kalian had been more than her partner. He was her anchor, her muse, her reason to dream beyond the confines of duty. Without him, Leora found herself adrift, ruling with precision but devoid of passion. Her courtiers noticed the subtle changes, the slight hesitation before making decisions, the moments when her luminous eyes dimmed ever so slightly, but none dared speak of it openly. They understood grief well enough to know it wasn't something words could mend. And so, the days stretched into years, each marked by rituals and ceremonies designed to keep her occupied, though they brought little solace. The halls of her palace grew quieter, save for the soft hum of energy fields and the occasional rustle of attendants moving silently about their tasks. Even the vibrant gardens surrounding her throne room seemed muted without Kalian's presence to share them. It was during one such quiet afternoon that fate intervened in ways no prophecy could have foreseen. A delegation from Earth had arrived unexpectedly, seeking refuge after their vessel suffered critical damage while traversing nearby asteroid fields. Their ship limped into Xyloran airspace, broadcasting desperate pleas for assistance. Protocol demanded immediate aid, and Leora, ever dutiful, ordered her fleet to escort the damaged craft safely to the planet's surface. As preparations unfolded, curiosity stirred within her, a rare sensation these days. Humanity fascinated her, though she'd never met one personally. Their resilience intrigued her, their ability to thrive amidst chaos inspiring admiration. When informed that several members of the crew would be brought directly to the palace for medical evaluation, she agreed without hesitation, eager to observe these creatures firsthand. Little did she realize that this encounter would unravel threads long buried beneath layers of loss and longing. For among those stepping off the battered spacecraft was someone whose appearance bore an uncanny resemblance to Kalian, a man whose mere presence would shatter the fragile equilibrium Leora had painstakingly maintained since her husband's passing. The moment he stepped into view, flanked by weary crewmates and clad in simple attire stained with grease and grime, Leora felt the air around her shift. He moved with purpose, shoulders squared despite evident exhaustion, his focus trained on ensuring everyone disembarked safely. But it wasn't his actions that arrested her attention, it was his face. Those sharp cheekbones, the curve of his jawline, the intensity in his dark eyes, they mirrored Kalian so perfectly that for a heartbeat, Leora thought she might collapse under the weight of memory crashing over her. Her guards ushered the humans toward the grand hall where refreshments awaited, but Leora remained rooted to the spot, unable to tear her gaze away. She watched as he paused briefly, scanning the ornate surroundings with a mixture of wonder and wariness. There was something inherently humble about him, underscored by the streaks of dirt smudging his hands and clothing. Unlike the polished diplomats she often entertained, this man carried himself with quiet dignity, unbothered by the opulence surrounding him. When introductions commenced, she learned his name, Elias. A cleaner aboard the human vessel, tasked with maintaining systems vital to their survival. His role may have been modest compared to others present, yet there was undeniable strength in his demeanor, a quiet confidence that resonated deeply within her. As he bowed respectfully before her, uttering formal greetings taught hastily during transit, Leora struggled to maintain composure. Each syllable he spoke sent tremors rippling through her core, stirring echoes of conversations shared long ago with Kalian. Elias noticed her reaction, or perhaps sensed it, for his expression softened momentarily, concern flickering across features too familiar to ignore. "Your Majesty," he began hesitantly, voice tinged with uncertainty. "Is everything all right?" She managed a nod, forcing herself to respond with customary grace. "Yes, thank you, Elias. You and your companions are welcome here." Yet internally, turmoil raged unchecked. How could this stranger evoke such raw emotion? Was it mere coincidence, or did some cosmic force conspire to weave paths once thought severed forever? Determined to regain control, Leora excused herself briefly, retreating to a secluded balcony overlooking the gardens below. Cool breezes caressed her skin, carrying scents of blooming flora meant to soothe troubled minds. Instead, they amplified her disarray, memories flooding back unbidden. Images of Kalian laughing beside her, teaching her ancient dances under twin moons now extinct, memories she'd locked away resurfaced with startling clarity. Returning to the gathering proved equally challenging. Every glance toward Elias reignited waves of conflicting emotions, grief intertwined with hope, despair mingled with yearning. She tried engaging others, focusing on diplomatic pleasantries expected of her station, but invariably her thoughts drifted back to him. There was magnetism in his presence, drawing her inexorably closer regardless of logic or propriety. By evening's end, as farewells concluded and arrangements made for repairs to commence, Leora found herself lingering near the entrance, watching Elias depart alongside his colleagues. Something primal urged her to call out, to demand answers neither science nor spirituality could provide. But pride held her tongue, leaving her isolated amidst shadows lengthening across marble floors. That night, sleep eluded her entirely. Visions of Elias-haunted dreams fragmented by flashes of Kalian's smile, creating a kaleidoscope of emotions impossible to decipher. Dawn broke over Xylora's horizon, painting skies anew, yet within Leora's chambers darkness lingered, a tempest brewing unseen, waiting to unleash consequences unforeseen. Days turned into weeks as the human delegation settled into temporary quarters within the palace grounds. Repairs progressed steadily under the watchful eyes of Xyloran engineers, while cultural exchanges blossomed between species separated by light years yet united by shared adversity. Amidst diplomatic discussions and technical collaborations, however, Leora found herself increasingly drawn to Elias, not merely because of his resemblance to Kalian but due to qualities uniquely his own. He possessed an innate kindness that transcended language barriers, often seen assisting fellow crewmates or striking up conversations with curious Xylorans eager to learn about Earth. Despite initial reservations stemming from their vastly different backgrounds, many warmed to him quickly, charmed by his earnestness and humor. Even Leora's advisors noted approvingly how seamlessly he integrated into their society, adapting customs and protocols with remarkable ease. Yet, for Leora, interactions with Elias remained fraught with complexity. Each encounter stirred fresh waves of emotion, forcing her to confront unresolved feelings buried deep within. During formal banquets, she observed him discreetly from across crowded tables, marveling at how effortlessly he navigated social intricacies unfamiliar to outsiders. Conversations flowed naturally around him, punctuated by laughter that seemed to brighten entire rooms, a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere she'd grown accustomed to post-Kalian. One evening, unable to resist any longer, Leora approached him directly after dinner. "Elias," she began softly, drawing his attention away from animated discourse with a group of artisans. "Might I trouble you for a moment?" Surprise flickered briefly across his features before politeness took precedence. "Of course, Your Majesty." Excusing himself gracefully, he followed her to a quieter alcove adorned with bioluminescent flora casting gentle illumination. "I wish to thank you personally," she continued, voice steady despite inner turmoil. "Your contributions here have been invaluable, not only regarding repairs but also fostering understanding between our peoples." A modest smile curved his lips. "Just doing my part, ma'am. Everyone's been incredibly welcoming." His humility struck a chord within her, reminding her sharply of Kalian's selflessness. "You remind me of someone dear to me once," she admitted impulsively, regretting the words almost instantly as vulnerability crept into her tone. Elias tilted his head slightly, studying her intently. "I'm honored if I do, Your Majesty. If you don't mind sharing, who was he?" For a moment, silence stretched taut between them. Then, exhaling slowly, Leora recounted fragments of Kalian's story, his adventurous spirit, boundless curiosity, unwavering devotion. As she spoke, memories surfaced vividly, accompanied by a bittersweet ache that rendered speech difficult. Yet Elias listened attentively, offering silent support through attentive nods and empathetic expressions. When she finished, tears glistened unshed in her eyes. "Forgive me," she murmured, embarrassed by unexpected display of emotion. "It has been many years since I last spoke of him." "There's nothing to forgive," Elias replied gently. "Grief isn't something we leave behind entirely, is it? We carry pieces of those we love wherever we go." His insight startled her, resonating profoundly. In that instant, barriers erected meticulously over decades began crumbling, exposing raw truths she hadn't dared acknowledge. Perhaps what drew her to Elias wasn't solely physical resemblance, but rather echoes of Kalian's essence reflected in his character. Their conversation shifted gradually, evolving into discussions spanning topics ranging from interstellar politics to personal philosophies. Hours slipped past unnoticed as they delved deeper, discovering commonalities amidst differences. By nightfall, reluctance filled Leora as reality intruded, reminders of responsibilities awaiting tomorrow morning. Reluctantly bidding farewell, she returned to private chambers overwhelmed by revelations unearthed during their exchange. Sleep evaded her again, mind racing with possibilities both exhilarating and terrifying. Could she truly forge connections anew, allowing herself to heal wounds believed permanent? Or would embracing change risk shattering remnants of stability clung to desperately thus far? Meanwhile, whispers circulated throughout the palace regarding increased frequency of meetings between Queen and Cleaner. Speculation ran rampant among courtiers, some viewing developments favorably while others expressed concern over potential ramifications. Regardless of opinions voiced privately, undeniable chemistry simmered palpably whenever Leora and Elias shared proximity, a magnetic pull defying conventional norms yet impossible to deny. As days morphed into months, bonds strengthening incrementally transformed dynamics irrevocably. No longer content observing passively, Leora actively sought opportunities to engage Elias further, inviting him to join delegations exploring remote regions of Xylora or participate in ceremonial events traditionally reserved exclusively for nobility. Initially hesitant given perceived impropriety, Elias eventually acquiesced, recognizing sincerity underlying invitations extended repeatedly. Through shared experiences emerged mutual respect transcending initial attraction based purely on superficial similarities. Adventures undertaken together revealed facets previously concealed, Elias's resourcefulness during crises, quick thinking averting disasters narrowly avoided thanks largely to innovative solutions proposed spontaneously. Conversely, Leora demonstrated leadership qualities inspiring admiration, balancing authority seamlessly with compassion rarely witnessed outside intimate circles. However, challenges inevitably arose testing nascent relationship forged precariously atop foundations shaky at best. Public scrutiny intensified exponentially following rumors circulating wildly regarding nature of interactions occurring frequently sans official sanction. Traditionalists within court viewed burgeoning alliance skeptically, questioning implications arising should affections develop openly acknowledged officially. Pressure mounted exponentially, culminating dramatically during state banquet attended by dignitaries representing myriad planets aligned politically with Xylora historically. Tensions simmered barely contained beneath veneers maintained meticulously until breaking point reached unexpectedly midway proceedings. Provoked deliberately via thinly veiled insults targeting Elias specifically, Leora reacted instinctively defending vehemently against accusations baseless yet damaging nonetheless. Confrontation erupted swiftly escalating rapidly spiraling chaos engulfing assembly momentarily paralyzed collectively witnessing unprecedented breach protocol committed publicly. Shock reverberated palpably echoing loudly underscoring gravity situation unfolding uncontrollably threatening to destabilize carefully cultivated harmony painstakingly preserved generations prior. Amidst pandemonium reigning supreme momentarily, Clarity dawned suddenly, illuminating stark realities confronting squarely unavoidable henceforth. Choices loomed daunting, requiring resolution, definitive, determining trajectories, futures intertwined, irreversibly moving forward, irrespective, consequences inevitable, ensuing inevitably. With resolve hardened, steel-tempered, adversity faced courageously, Leora addressed assembly, firmly asserting unequivocally intentions, steadfast, unwavering commitment, forging path, uncharted, navigating complexities inherent, embracing evolution, inevitable, progressing relentlessly onward, undeterred, obstacles obstructing journey, transformative, destined, redefined paradigms, existing fundamentally, henceforth, eternally. The grand hall fell silent, save for the faint hum of energy fields sustaining the opulent chamber. All eyes were fixed on Leora as she stood tall, her luminous form radiating an intensity that silenced even the most vocal dissenters. Her voice carried a weight that transcended mere words. It was the voice of a ruler who had spent centuries balancing power and compassion, now choosing to wield both with unyielding resolve. "Elias is not here merely because he resembles someone I once loved," she declared, her tone unwavering yet imbued with emotion. "He is here because his actions, his character, and his spirit have earned him a place among us, not as an outsider, but as someone who has proven himself worthy of respect and trust." She paused, allowing her words to settle over the assembly like a storm cloud breaking apart to reveal sunlight. "But let me be clear," she continued, her gaze sweeping across the room, daring anyone to challenge her next statement. "This is not about defiance of tradition or disregard for protocol. It is about evolution, about recognizing that growth often requires stepping beyond what we know and embracing what we do not yet understand. If Xylora is to remain a beacon of progress in this galaxy, then we must embody the very principles we claim to uphold: unity, acceptance, and courage in the face of change." Her advisors exchanged uneasy glances, some nodding hesitantly while others clenched their jaws in disapproval. Among the gathered dignitaries, murmurs rippled through the crowd, a mix of admiration and apprehension coloring their reactions. Elias, standing quietly at the edge of the commotion, felt the weight of countless stares upon him. He shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to step forward or retreat into the shadows where he believed he belonged. Leora noticed his hesitation and turned toward him, extending a hand, an invitation, a gesture of solidarity. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The air between them crackled with unspoken understanding, a connection forged not just by circumstance but by shared vulnerability. Slowly, Elias raised his head, meeting her gaze with quiet determination. Without uttering a word, he stepped forward and placed his hand in hers, sealing an alliance that would ripple far beyond the confines of the banquet hall. The act sent shockwaves through the room. Gasps echoed from every corner, followed by tense silence as everyone processed the implications of what they had witnessed. To some, it was an audacious declaration of intent, a queen openly aligning herself with a being so vastly different from her own kind. To others, it was an affront to centuries of tradition, a betrayal of the rigid hierarchy that had defined Xyloran society for generations. Yet amidst the chaos, there were whispers of hope. A few younger delegates, inspired by Leora's boldness, began exchanging nods of approval. One ambassador from a neighboring planet rose cautiously, raising her glass in a tentative toast. "To progress," she said softly, her voice carrying just enough to break the spell of uncertainty hanging over the room. Others hesitated before following suit, until a chorus of muted cheers filled the space, signaling a fragile but undeniable shift in sentiment. As the evening drew to a close, Leora retreated to her private chambers, exhaustion etched into her features despite the triumph she had achieved. Elias accompanied her silently, sensing the turmoil brewing beneath her composed exterior. When they reached the balcony overlooking the gardens, she finally allowed herself to exhale fully, leaning against the railing as if seeking support from the cool night air. "You didn't have to do that," Elias said after a long pause, his voice tinged with concern. "You put yourself, and your people, at risk tonight." Leora turned to look at him, her eyes shimmering with conflicting emotions. "And yet, I couldn't stay silent. Not when they questioned your worth. Not when they dismissed you simply because you're different. You've shown me more kindness, more humanity, than many within my own court ever have. How could I stand idly by while they tore you down?" Elias opened his mouth to respond but found no immediate answer. Instead, he joined her at the railing, gazing out at the glowing flora swaying gently in the breeze. "I never asked for any of this," he admitted quietly. "I'm just a cleaner, trying to get my crew home safely. But I can't deny that being here, meeting you, it's changed something inside me too. I see things differently now, feel things I didn't think possible." His confession hung in the air, raw and honest, mirroring the thoughts swirling within Leora's mind. She reached out instinctively, brushing her fingers against his hand resting on the railing. The contact sent a jolt through both of them, a reminder of the electric pull that had drawn them together since the beginning. For a fleeting moment, neither spoke, content to simply exist in each other's presence. But reality soon intruded, as it always did. Somewhere in the distance, alarms blared faintly, signaling an incoming transmission from the repair bay. Repairs on the human vessel were nearing completion, meaning Elias's departure loomed closer with each passing day. "I don't know what happens next," Leora whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "But I do know one thing, I won't let fear dictate my choices anymore. Not after everything we've faced together." Elias nodded, though doubt lingered in his expression. "Neither will I. But leaving, it feels wrong somehow. Like walking away from something unfinished." "Perhaps it is unfinished," Leora replied, a flicker of resolve returning to her gaze. "Or perhaps endings are simply beginnings waiting to unfold." Before either could delve deeper into the complexities of their situation, footsteps approached from behind. One of Leora's senior advisors appeared, bowing respectfully before delivering urgent news. "Your Majesty, there's been a development regarding the repairs. It seems complications have arisen, delays that may extend their stay indefinitely." Relief washed over Elias momentarily, only to be replaced by apprehension. More time meant more opportunities for connection, but also greater risks of conflict. As the advisor departed, leaving them alone once more, Leora and Elias exchanged knowing looks. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, navigating uncharted waters with courage born of necessity and desire alike. In the days that followed, tensions simmered just below the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. While public displays of hostility diminished somewhat, undercurrents of resentment persisted among certain factions within the palace. Traditionalists continued to grumble behind closed doors, plotting ways to undermine Leora's authority without directly challenging her outright. Meanwhile, supporters rallied around her cause, emboldened by her willingness to champion inclusivity and innovation. Elias became increasingly aware of the scrutiny surrounding him, feeling the weight of expectations placed upon his shoulders. Every action he took, every word he spoke, seemed magnified tenfold. Yet rather than retreating into isolation, he chose to lean into the role thrust upon him. He immersed himself in learning about Xyloran culture, participating actively in discussions aimed at fostering mutual understanding between humans and aliens. His efforts earned him allies among progressive thinkers eager to bridge divides separating species scattered across galaxies. Despite growing camaraderie, however, challenges remained formidable. Technical setbacks plagued repair efforts repeatedly. Prolonging duration required completing necessary modifications, ensuring safe return journey Earthside. Frustration mounted steadily amongst human contingent anxious reunite families awaiting anxiously news updates sporadically transmitted via limited communication channels available intermittently. Throughout trials endured collectively, bond uniting Leora Elias deepened exponentially, transcending boundaries initially perceived insurmountable. Shared experiences adversity cultivated resilience enabling navigate obstacles encountered along path uncertain destiny awaited patiently reveal secrets concealed stars twinkling serenely overhead nightly vigils conducted privately secluded alcoves hidden prying eyes curious observers speculating fervently nature relationship evolving dynamically day. One fateful evening, gathering storm clouds heralded tempestuous weather patterns sweeping across Xylora unexpectedly disrupting routines established meticulously months prior. Lightning illuminated skies dramatically casting eerie glow illuminating landscapes bathed silver hues reflecting tumultuous emotions mirrored perfectly turmoil raging internally hearts entwined fatefully destined rewrite histories unfolding pages cosmic saga written stars ancient wisdom guiding destinies intertwined irrevocably henceforth eternity beckoning embrace transformations inevitable progressing relentlessly. Onward undeterred obstacles obstructing journey transformative destined. Redefine paradigms existing fundamentally henceforth eternally. As thunder rolled ominously in the distance, Leora and Elias found themselves once again on the balcony, watching as rain began to fall in sheets, drenching the vibrant gardens below. The storm mirrored the turbulence within them, a reflection of the forces pulling them in opposing directions yet binding them inexorably together. "Do you believe in signs?" Leora asked suddenly, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. Elias glanced at her, startled by the question. "Signs? Like omens or messages from the universe?" She nodded, her luminous eyes searching his face intently. "Perhaps. Or maybe just patterns. Things that seem too coincidental to ignore." He considered her words carefully before responding. "I guess I do, in a way. Back on Earth, we used to say that storms cleared the air, not just physically, but emotionally too. Maybe this is our chance to clear some things up." A small smile tugged at the corners of Leora's lips. "Then let's talk. Truly talk. No holding back, no pretending everything is simpler than it really is." Elias hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But you go first." Taking a deep breath, Leora began, her voice steady despite the storm raging around them. "I've spent centuries building walls around myself, protecting my heart from pain. Kalian's loss left me hollow, convinced I'd never feel whole again. And then you came into my life, stirring emotions I thought buried forever. At first, I resented it. I fought against it. But now I realize that resisting only prolongs the agony. What I feel for you isn't betrayal of his memory. It's an extension of the love he taught me to give freely." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away, determined to finish. "If staying true to myself means risking everything, including my throne, then so be it. Because living half a life, denying what my heart knows to be real, isn't living at all." Elias listened in silence, absorbing every word. When she finished, he exhaled slowly, as if releasing a burden he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just the politics or the scrutiny, but the responsibility of loving someone like you. Someone whose world is so much bigger than mine. But I also know that walking away would mean turning my back on something extraordinary. Something worth fighting for." Reaching out, he took her hand in his, intertwining their fingers tightly. "So whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Even if it means rewriting rules nobody thought needed changing." Their resolve solidified in that moment, strengthened by vulnerability laid bare beneath stormy skies. As lightning flashed once more, illuminating their faces with fleeting brilliance, they embraced, drawing comfort from the certainty that whatever storms lay ahead, they would weather them side by side. Unbeknownst to them, however, forces beyond their control were already converging, setting into motion events destined to test their newfound unity in ways neither could anticipate. For while love might conquer many obstacles, the universe rarely grants reprieve without demanding sacrifice in return. As the storm raged on, its fury seemed to mirror the turmoil brewing in distant corners of the galaxy. Unseen by Leora and Elias, a shadowy fleet approached Xylora's borders, their intentions cloaked in secrecy but laced with menace. These were not explorers or diplomats. They were mercenaries hired by factions within Xylora who sought to destabilize Leora's reign and restore what they deemed order. To them, her alliance with Elias represented a dangerous precedent, one that threatened the rigid hierarchy they had long upheld. The first sign of trouble came as a faint tremor beneath their feet, subtle enough to be mistaken for thunder at first. But when alarms blared throughout the palace, signaling an unauthorized vessel breaching planetary defenses, reality crashed down upon them like a tidal wave. Guards rushed to secure the perimeter, while advisors scrambled to assess the threat. Chaos erupted instantly, shattering the fragile calm Leora and Elias had found amidst the storm. "We need to get you to safety," Leora said urgently, gripping Elias's arm as they hurried inside. Her luminous skin flickered with shades of deep purple, betraying her anxiety. "If they discover your presence here—" "I'm not leaving you," Elias interrupted firmly, his voice cutting through her protest. "Not now. Not after everything we've been through." Leora hesitated, torn between protecting him and acknowledging the truth in his words. Finally, she nodded. "Then stay close. Trust no one except those I tell you to." Together, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the palace, avoiding clusters of panicked servants and soldiers mobilizing for defense. News trickled in sporadically, The invaders had targeted key infrastructure, including communication hubs and energy grids, effectively severing Xylora's ability to call for reinforcements. It was a calculated strike, designed to isolate Leora and weaken her authority. When they reached the war room, Leora's senior advisors were already gathered, their faces grim. Holographic maps displayed the extent of the invasion, red markers spreading ominously across Xylora's surface. The mercenaries were advancing swiftly, their numbers overwhelming local forces ill-prepared for such an assault. "Your Majesty," one advisor began, his tone heavy with urgency, "we must evacuate you immediately. If they capture you—" "They won't," Leora snapped, her voice sharp with determination. Turning to another advisor, she ordered, "Activate the emergency protocols. Rally every available soldier and civilian volunteer. We fight back, not just for me, but for Xylora itself." Her declaration ignited a spark among those present. For too long, fear had dictated their actions. Now, faced with annihilation, courage took root. Orders flew rapidly, strategies formulated under pressure as preparations unfolded at breakneck speed. Elias stood quietly to the side, observing the flurry of activity around him. Though he lacked formal training in combat or leadership, he understood instinctively that this moment would define not only Leora's legacy but also the future of their bond. Summoning every ounce of resolve, he stepped forward. "What can I do?" he asked simply, addressing Leora directly. His gaze was steady, unwavering despite the chaos swirling around them. For a heartbeat, Leora stared at him, pride mingling with sorrow in her eyes. Then she placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch grounding him. "You'll lead a team to secure the central power core. Without it, our defenses will collapse entirely. Can you handle that?" Elias swallowed hard, nodding once. "I'll protect it with my life." With that, they parted ways temporarily, each heading toward separate fronts in the battle unfolding across Xylora. As Elias led his group, a mix of seasoned warriors and volunteers armed with makeshift weapons, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission symbolized more than mere survival. It was about proving himself, not just to Leora, but to everyone who doubted his worth. Meanwhile, Leora commanded from the front lines, her ethereal form glowing brighter with every strategic decision made. She inspired her people with speeches that echoed Kalian's spirit of resilience, reminding them why unity mattered above all else. Under her guidance, resistance coalesced into something formidable, turning the tide ever so slightly against the invaders. Hours passed like seconds, the battlefield awash with flashes of light and deafening explosions. Casualties mounted on both sides, yet hope refused to die. When Elias finally reached the power core, he found it guarded fiercely by mercenaries determined to claim victory. What followed was a brutal skirmish, testing his limits physically and mentally. But drawing strength from memories of Leora's unwavering faith in him, he fought with ferocity that surprised even himself. Back at the palace, Leora faced her own trials. Betrayal struck unexpectedly when one of her closest advisors revealed himself as a traitor, attempting to seize control during the chaos. Enraged yet composed, Leora confronted him personally, her words slicing through deceit like a blade. "You underestimate us," she declared coldly before subduing him with precision honed over centuries of rule. By dawn, the tide had shifted decisively. Exhausted but victorious, survivors regrouped in the palace courtyard, battered but unbroken. Elias returned to find Leora standing amidst the wreckage, her glow dimmed but far from extinguished. Their eyes met across the distance, speaking volumes without uttering a word. As they embraced, relief washing over them like rain after drought, Leora whispered softly, "We did it. Together." But the cost weighed heavily on them both. Too many lives lost, too much destruction wrought. And though peace reigned once more, scars remained, reminders of sacrifices made and lessons learned. In the weeks that followed, rebuilding efforts commenced, fueled by renewed determination to forge a brighter future. Leora implemented reforms aimed at dismantling outdated hierarchies, ensuring inclusivity became the cornerstone of Xyloran society moving forward. Elias played a pivotal role in these changes, his perspective valued immensely as bridges continued to form between humans and aliens alike. Yet uncertainty lingered regarding their personal journey. With repairs completed on the human vessel, departure loomed inevitably. Standing together one final time on the balcony where their story began, they gazed out at stars twinkling serenely overhead. "Will you come with me?" Elias asked eventually, breaking the silence. "To Earth, I mean. Start anew somewhere completely different." Leora smiled wistfully, tracing constellations with her fingertips. "And leave behind everything I've built here? Everything we've fought for?" "It doesn't have to mean abandoning it," he countered gently. "Just expanding horizons further than anyone thought possible." She considered his proposal thoughtfully, heart torn between duty and desire. Ultimately, she turned to face him, placing both hands on his cheeks. "Wherever we go next, let it be together. Whether here among stars familiar or venturing beyond realms unknown, our connection transcends boundaries set by fate or circumstance." With that promise sealed, they prepared for whatever adventures awaited beyond horizons stretching infinitely wide. For love, forged amidst storms and battles, proved resilient enough to weather any challenge destiny dared throw their way.